I wonder if you are someone in life who follows the rules. So when I was very little, I wasn't very good at following the rules. And my mum used to tell stories of how I was rather outspoken, and on several occasions, as she put it, she wanted the ground to swallow her up. But as I got older, I realised I didn't like getting in trouble, and I became a firm follower of the rules. And I also tried to be kind to people, a good person, and I've always stuck to the principle of treating others as I would like to be treated. So, what about you? Do you follow the rules? Do you stick to the speed limits? Do you follow the social norms that have become expected of us? Well, the last few weeks we've looked at Jesus sharing a meal with a vast number of people after performing miracles. But this week we're going to see him in a more intimate setting with Matthew's friends and the disciples. But as Jesus often did, he turned things on their head and he broke some of the rules in society at that time, causing opposition and disruption. So let's watch it now.
As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him. And Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners."
So, who is Matthew and what was he doing with Jesus? Matthew was a tax collector. Some think he may be the writer of the Gospel, Matthew itself. We do know as a tax collector he would have been literate and he may have written things down. We know as the church grew, he travelled as an evangelist and shared the gospel. But today's passage is the only story we have recorded about him, though he's mentioned when the 12 disciples are named and may possibly be the brother of James. What do we know about tax collectors in Jesus' day? Well, they were very low down in society. They were Jews who had betrayed their community of Jews by working for the Romans. One of the issues were there were two types of taxes. There were fixed taxes, which were for things like wine, oil, fruit, grain, etc., which people knew the price of. And there were other taxes for things like transporting goods in and out of the country. And these were flexible and decided by the local Roman leader. So the tax collectors would often charge extra for these and pocket the extra. They also accepted bribes, and they would threaten fellow Jews if they hadn't paid their taxes. They were wealthy and powerful and despised by the Jews. So we have Matthew in a booth, collecting his money in a busy area, and Jesus walks past. Jesus is starting to get a reputation. He's teaching with authority. He's challenging some of the accepted norms. He's healing people, and people are travelling to hear him talk. Matthew may well have heard about him. Jesus looks at him and says two words. Simply, follow me. The writer Michael Green, who writes about Matthew's gospel, has this to say. And then suddenly Jesus stood in front of him and said, "Follow me." And Matthew did that. It was truly amazing that Jesus should bother about someone so universally despised and hated. Amazing that Matthew should leave everything, his wealthy lifestyle, to follow this carpenter who promised no wealth. Amazing that Jesus had such authority that when he said to a businessman, "Follow me," the man obeyed. And amazing the transformation in Matthew's life that resulted. We're then told that Jesus and his disciples are eating dinner at Matthew's house with other tax collectors and many sinners. And I really like this image. Don't they look like they're having a great time? But then the focus shifts to the Pharisees, and we've talked about them before. A group of Jews who tried very hard to keep to the rules. They spent their lives working hard to be right with God. And they had lots of rules, including those about being clean. Because of this, they would have spent their time with people like them, people trying to be good, to be clean, which then they thought would bring them close to God. And they expected Jesus, who was a Jew and knew all about these laws, they expected him to be doing the same. Yet here is Jesus eating with tax collectors and sinners. And the word used in this passage for sinners is hamartalo, which means absolute moral failure, or one who violates God's law. Pretty harsh. They were people to be avoided. But not only did Jesus speak to these people, he was eating dinner, sharing in hospitality with them. It would have been a total shocker. A few years ago, I became interested in hospitality and came across a principle called radical hospitality. And there's lots of books with this as the title. And it's based on the idea that Jesus is so radical that he breaks down every barrier. Hospitality is for everyone. There's no vetting, no assessment. Everyone is welcome. And he demonstrates to us what church and what our lives could look like. But of course, in his Jewish culture, he was breaking all kinds of rules. And I'm not suggesting we should all go around breaking rules and causing chaos. But what can we learn from Jesus is who he engages with and how. And the Pharisees, of course, question his behaviour. And when Jesus hears this, he replies, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have come to call not the righteous, but sinners." We can follow the rules, try to be a good person, and work hard. But if we look down on people, all of it is pointless if we don't show mercy. Because of course we are all sinners, not one of us is perfect. The Pharisees had missed the whole point. They had missed what it is to love others. Once Matthew had encountered Jesus, he was never the same again. He left everything behind. He found forgiveness and a new and better way to live. And this is the transforming work of Jesus. As we encounter Jesus, we are changing too, gradually transforming. Not perfect, but changed. Amen.